Hey, folks, this is the latest episode of Spotlight series. And as you can see, we're going to be talking about birth charts. All that's coming up after this. Hey, folks. So, like you heard me say, we are talking about birth charts today. Um, first of all, before we get into this episode about birth charts, I just want to give you a quick background on the Spotlight series because this is the third video episode of the Spotlight series. So, for those of you who've listened to the Spotlight series or seen the two live episodes, the Spotlight series is really about me being able to highlight businesses, products, people, just being able to bring attention to those things that align with either my coaching or what I live by, those kind of things. And you may have heard of these things sometimes, but it might give you a different perspective from who we talk to that is doing it. So you've heard different businesses. We've done a podcast with Honey Bunny way back in the day. Um, and so we've had authors on the show. So yeah, that's what the Spotlight series is about. So today's episode again is about birth charts. That's what we're talking about. And the person that did my birth chart, which we will get to, I want to introduce you to her. Her name is Bethel Dutt. So she's had a long interest in astrology. And with that interest, she began to delve deeper into the field through studies and through reading birth charts. She's read close to 80 natal charts within the past year, and she continues to learn from studying them and from sharing people's birth charts with them. Bethel's personal approach to astrology is compassionate and she stresses free will. She has a degree in psychology and she has a religious upbringing. Quote, my personal relationship with God informs how I view astrological energies and how these energies affect people or affect how people spend their time here on earth. So, without further ado, I will bring her on the show. Hello,
Hi.
Bethel. How are you? Good, good, good. So, before we jump into actually what birth charts are, um, I love when you sent me the bio and I read it. Can you just give a brief description of how your upbringing kind of ties into the birth charts and the astrological studies and that kind of thing?
Uh, well, I've always had an interest in people
Hmm.
and astrology. It's just kind of fun. It's kind of frivolous. You look at it, look at your sun sign,
Sure.
and I I've always looked at gone online and just ran my chart through and seen the interpretations.
Hmm.
And initially, when you look at the computer readouts of your interpretations, which are kind of like just done by algorithm online or formula.
Mm. So it's kind of generic, yeah.
Scary. Yeah, it's kind of scary. You're like, okay, I don't want
Yeah.
to read the whole chart, but I joked around with a lot of friends about their
Mhm.
astrology. Like, oh, you're such an Aquarius, you're such an Aries,
Sure.
and at some point we joke about it, and I said, let me do your whole chart. This is a friend of mine,
Mhm. Mhm.
and this was about a year and a half ago, and I did his chart. I'm like, this is showing a lot more than just, the kind of fun,
Sure. The
just
just more than that surface level
exactly.
um
And
newspaper clipping of,
it
"Oh,
was
here's your."
showing
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Mhm.
And I shared it with him, and I did some others. And then I kind of thought, well, let me do my own, which was kind of scary because, we all kind of have backgrounds that maybe, we have past that we don't want to really focus on and kind of showcase
Absolutely.
why we're
Yeah.
acting the way we are now. But I
Hmm.
did mine, and it really gave me a lot of insight into why I act the way I do, maybe kind of the
Mm.
stories I tell myself about how things are.
Hmm.
And I felt it was really gave me a lot of insight into the things in my life, into
Mm.
maybe how I approach things, how I approach people, my relationships,
Sure. Sure.
and doing other people's helps me understand myself more, and then helps me just understand everything more.
And
Um,
this it helps you understand, I guess, more of the interconnectedness of how we all kind of, communicate with each other, or like you said, insight even into someone else. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we all have
Hmm.
different ways that we act, sometimes within relationships,
Hmm.
at work, in public, that
Hmm.
kind of show in a birth chart.
Mm.
It's strange. It's kind of actually amazing to see, and
Yeah.
everybody's different. So you have
Right.
to understand that maybe one thing that works for somebody or how they might see something is different than how you might see something.
Hmm.
So it gives you some humility about how people are, how we all are, how you
Sure.
yourself are, how you want to interact with other people.
Hmm.
And once you see that, you can maybe accept. I think it just shows, okay, I can accept this. I can see how it is. Either
Sure.
I can make a change or I can work within the structure of what I've been given.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it helps you when you see relationships with other people, how maybe you can approach them and how they are. Maybe
Mm.
they see things differently than you do. And
It ties into like this world of coaching that I'm in,
mhm,
very closely, because exactly what you're saying, during by having done your own birth chart, understanding some stories that you might live in,
exactly.
um, as I've gone through a lot of personal development to enhance my coaching,
Mhm.
I've found a lot of that where, oh, wait a minute, that's something in my past that just happened. And there are
Yeah.
reasons that I reacted or didn't react that way to it. But
Mhm.
then the freedom, or again, insight and understanding of not having to stay stuck or live in that story from the past, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I liked your in your bio about free will. Like that's
Yeah.
something too, right? It's not, people get these things, I'm sure, and they say, "Oh my gosh, this is what I'm destined to do, or this is who I'm gonna be, and this
No,
is."
and I think a lot of people think astrology is that way, and maybe even some astrologers see it that way.
Sure,
Maybe,
sure.
astrology has a long history. Maybe
Mhm.
that's what the
Yeah.
history of astrology is. But,
Mhm.
ultimately, you can transcend your birth chart, but you'd have to be, like a Buddhist monk living without stress. Because when you have
Sure,
stressors,
sure.
it kind
Yeah.
of brings up. And I know I'm stressing the bad things in your chart, but there's lots of
No, there's
potential
good things
in your
too.
chart. Yeah, when I did my chart,
Absolutely.
I'm not focusing on the positive things that I have potentials for in my life. So
Mhm,
your
mhm.
chart can show you that.
Can help unlock those things too.
Yeah,
Well, again, I know I teased that we'll go over my chart because
yeah,
that was, and I have to say, for those listening or watching, um, it was pretty amazing how spot on it was. But I know, and we talked briefly about it. I really didn't have any questions because it all made sense. It made
um,
sense of some things in the past, but it also made sense on the current trajectory that I'm on too. You know,
mhm.
it made complete sense, and I think we laughed about it because after you did it, you were like, "Oh yeah, I can see why you're a coach."
It's funny. I mean, I'm not, trying to like gas you up in your business here,
No, no, no,
but
not at all. Oh, please do. No, I'm kidding.
you can see in your chart where your desires lay and where maybe your talents lie. And
Mhm,
I think with life coaching, I can
mhm,
completely see what you have going there.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Well, yeah, we will definitely get to that. We will jump on that
Yeah.
one. For our audience, though, I want to go ahead and just give this basic definition, right? So, what is and we could talk about birth charts, and you can talk about the main points of what you think about them. Although you've done really good explaining what I think they are. So, a birth chart basically, and this is from Google, folks, so anyone can find this definition. But it's a snapshot of where of the position of the planets and the stars when you were born, right?
Yeah. And from
So,
where you were born. So to
mhm,
do a very accurate birth chart, you should know first location where you're born
okay,
and as close to the time as you
mhm,
can, because uh, it will just show you where you were born, where all the planets, everything was in the sky from that point when you were
mhm.
born.
Very
And
cool.
it's hard to explain. It's impossible to explain scientifically, but there's certain energies between the planets
Sure.
and the sun, the moon, to certain points in Earth. So
Mhm.
it just shows you how those energies work together. And I think the
Mm,
patterns that this energy show just have been studied over time. I mean,
mhm,
I've
mhm,
been studying astrology since the beginning of time,
mhm.
with astronomy. So,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think
they're patterns that people have written down and kept track of. So
well, and you mentioned that it's hard to explain scientifically. I would almost challenge, and not challenge you, but challenge that people don't understand it scientifically or can't be explained. I think that's part of being open to it, right? There is
yeah.
if when we're talking about science, right?
Hmm.
You just because it's not visible or it's not tangible doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? I mean, but that's hard science. That's one part of science. There is another part of science that proves we know about the magnetic field, right? About around the
Yeah.
earth. Can we see it?
Yeah. That's
No,
true.
but there are certain things that um we can feel it, or there's certain things that happen, just like if you want to tell someone, well, does air really exist, right? You can't see it, but you see the
Yeah.
wind blowing, you breathe. So you
Yeah. That's
know
true.
for people who are always looking for empirical evidence, right, or trying to disprove something just because you can't touch it, smell it, taste it, see it, energy is real,
Yeah.
and that's proven. So, um, I love the fact of how it all folds together.
Yeah.
Um, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, didn't want to
It's
interrupt.
yeah, and charts are very complex. It, it's still a mystery. You could look at a chart forever,
Yeah.
going into all the different dimensions of it. Just like everything, it's just how life is.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's a lot to study,
Sure.
and
Sure.
yeah.
Before we get to some of the main points of why you believe in birth charts, how did you, other than I guess your friend's birth chart, um, was there something more specific, or did your love of astrology come from getting the degree in psychology? Was it like just always in the back of your mind, or was there like one turning point other than the story that you shared with us?
Not really.
Hmm.
I've always just found it, like lots of people do, kind of fascinating, kind of
Sure,
fun
sure.
to share astrology information with other people, like what you are. It's a way to relate to other people.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of it is I'm just interested in people,
Mm.
and I've never done any sort of therapy with psychology, but you understanding how, or trying to at least understand how
Yeah.
people people's experiences are with each other, and relationships also.
Yeah.
How do you grow? Um,
Mm.
and and actually, astrology, there's other charts where you show yourself with another person,
Hmm.
how you relate to other people, because that shows growth. You grow through your relations with other people.
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, go ahead. If you could go a little deeper into that, that's one of the talking points that we have
Yeah.
about the birth charts. It increases self understanding. So if you could add a little bit more to that, how can a birth chart help someone understand themselves a little bit more?
Well, like say for example, the different parts of birth charts are that there's signs,
Hmm.
which we all know is Aries, Taurus, all that,
Sure, those are the sun signs, correct?
sun
That
signs.
the
But
sun signs that we know about. Yeah.
those signs also apply to all the planets. So you can have your sun signs. For instance, my
Hmm.
sun signs in Sagittarius, my moon signs in Scorpio.
Okay.
So you also have the planets. The planets have their own energies,
Mm.
um, which could be affected by a sign. So, for
Hmm.
instance, I have my moon, which is your moon shows your emotional perceptions. It's very important.
Ah, okay.
It's close to being as important as your sun. Your sun is your ego and kind of how you want to show up in the world.
Mm.
It's your main light, but your
Okay.
moon is how you respond emotionally to things
Sure.
around you. For instance, my moon is in the sign of Scorpio, which is a very
Mm.
intense sign. It's not always easy. So I guess people who I have relationships with maybe not might not always find it easy, but it's
Mhm.
also it's it likes to go in depth, which could be with my interest in astrology, and it's in the sixth house. The houses also show um, different parts of how we live. So the sixth house is
Okay.
of work,
Mm.
everyday routine. It's not a fun house. My moon is in the sixth house, which kind of, and it's in Scorpio, which, for instance,
Mhm.
I'm giving you an example here. It can
Sure.
show that I like to have intensity within just a regular work life or my routines.
Mhm.
Um, so, like, I use my emotions to be productive, which, what makes me happy in the day? Making a to do list and
And
the day having it all done. Not everyone finds that fun, but that's just an example of
gotcha.
how my emotions are satisfied through regular
Through
work,
the
regular
right, through the
routine.
routine,
Yeah,
right.
whereas maybe a more fun house would be the fifth house, which is more like creativity, romance,
Mhm.
creating, art.
Sure.
And so you would be expressing something within a certain sign, say your
Mm.
sun, your vitality. If
Mhm.
it was in a different sign of, like, say, Aries, which is just this outward, bold energy,
Mhm.
but in the house of creativity. So it's very
Ah,
complex.
see
There's
how
different
it's
houses.
all intertwined, yeah.
Yeah. So
I
to
can't wait to
read
hear
something,
about the 12th house.
you have the 12th house.
Yes, yes.
The 12th
Well,
house
I
is
know I've
yeah.
heard about it, but, we'll
Yeah.
let everyone else in on it too. Um, so then how can how can astrology and your birth chart help you in understanding others? If you can give an example of that.
Well, I guess you have to look at other people's birth charts, but not
Okay.
even knowing other people's birth charts, just knowing about yourself and how you
Mhm.
might see things a certain way or experience things a certain way.
Mhm.
Other people are different. So
Mm.
you can't
Okay.
just assume that everyone might see things your way
The same
or
point of view. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Gotcha. And then this I love this talking point where it kind of brings it all together. At least again for me, being open
Mhm.
to this brings it all together. Um, but the one part that I want to ask you about is how does it tie into, or if you have an example or can think of one, how does it tie into helping us understand our relationship and responsibility with nature also. We've talked a lot about the human interaction and relationship, but responsibility to nature as well.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately,
Mhm.
because astrology is based on energies,
Okay.
and I think it just makes me understand how I read it personally is that we are just one point in time. Of course, we were
Mhm.
born, it's important, significant for reading a birth chart, but we are part of a larger energy
Mm.
with the earth, with throughout dimensions of time, and
Mhm.
we have some. I feel like we have some karmic responsibility to treat each other in a certain way.
Mhm.
Um, for me, astrology kind of elucidates that, and also just the world around us. We're not just these actors just kind of acting upon things. We are part of a larger
Sure.
energy source that I believe that God has created, that
Mhm. Mhm.
we owe each other uh, to act in certain ways, and also with the world
Yeah.
around us.
Was what's kind of best for the collective, you know, the
Yeah,
a lot of
and
times
the
people
collective includes the earth.
yeah.
Yeah, we
Yes. Yes.
when we see now. I mean, not to be like a tree hugger type, but because I'm not,
Sure,
but
yeah.
you the we want to be the earth is good to us, but it could also be
Mhm.
hard on. I mean, you see lots of things happening in the world now.
Sure.
Um, so there's violence there. There's
Well, it's very much, I would classify it this way too. There's always gonna be a balance, right? And when
Mhm.
things are out of balance, it's part of our responsibility to keep that harmonic balance, right? Not just with people, but with nature,
Yeah,
or or it will balance itself.
yeah.
And so when we start talking about the climate, when we start talking about, these wildfires and droughts
Mhm.
and just all of the
Coming back to us. Yeah,
yeah, right? That's the imbalance, and that is Earth, Mother Nature, trying to correct the imbalance,
yeah,
and unfortunately it is violent and it can be catastrophic to humans, but let's reframe that, right? If we were actually doing our part in a much more harmonic way, maybe the correction of the imbalance wouldn't be so violent.
yeah. That's
Just my take.
there's a lot of Pluto there, which is transformation
Mhm.
and power, and without to make changes, unfortunately, sadly there has to be. It's messy.
Yeah.
So I mean, you
Well
can see
well, change is
the world with different power structures within the world right now.
sure,
There's a
sure.
lot of change happening right now, and
And change is inevitable. Whether
it is, yeah.
whether you
Yeah,
want to change or you don't want to, well, the change is gonna happen whether you want to align with it and be part of it or be forced into it.
yeah, the resistance to it it will create problems, but there always is
Yeah,
resistance because that's just
sure.
natural. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It's hard to go with a it's hard to go with
I'm cracking up because I would swear you're a coach because that's what comes across with coaching, right? Especially when you're
yeah.
trying to help someone transform.
Mhm.
That's so much coach speak, right? But trying to help someone transform their mindset, transform X, Y, and Z, it really it does get met with resistance, but it's resistance because it can be challenging trying to let go of history, let go of, like we said earlier on, these stories that we live in. You know what I mean? If
Completely,
we
yeah.
if we let go of those, and and folks, I'd be willing to bet like astrology and understanding your birth chart, at least for me, that's like when you did it, it was like, oh yeah. that makes sense. But once you can understand it and make sense of it, that's actually when you can let go of it, you know,
Yeah.
and use, like you said, the free will.
Yeah, I think the birth chart it's a tool. I
Hmm.
mean, if you ever want to go into therapy, actually, strangely, I never have, even though I have a
I,
psychology degree. But I think it'd be a useful starting point because I
sure.
think the best thing that a birth chart can do is just to show you this is how it is.
Yep.
And you're just like, okay, this is how it is.
Hmm.
Own it, accept it, and then what do you want to do about it? Sometimes you don't want to do about some things.
Right. Right.
Once again, I'm focusing on the negative, but there's lots of positive things about a birth chart.
Well, no,
Uh,
I think you're not on
or
negative. It's
you
just
can
what
make
is.
yeah, or you could make a change, and I think that's for me. The birth chart is just it's a tool.
Yeah,
It's a tool
absolutely.
to completely for understanding yourself and
Yeah.
for just growing from
I
there,
I
and
think we're gonna get you into the world of coaching because I promise you, that is really, and again, I think the world of coaching, therapy, they're all intertwined because it really
yeah,
is about helping someone get out of their own way, right? To
yeah.
be the oh, there's so much coach speak, but to be the best self they can be, but to
Yeah, you wanna be
to
like,
yeah,
yeah, happy, whatever, but yeah, I
yeah,
know,
to
for
benefit
me
themselves.
especially, you have certain things that happen to you. I might have had
Mhm,
maybe, not the best childhood, but
mhm.
you have certain things that happen to you, and I think one thing is maybe using things as an excuse, like, "Well, I'm doing this because of this,"
Right.
and
Absolutely.
even if that did happen to you, it's not a reason to visit something on other people. And not only that,
Mhm.
do you want to keep living
Right,
the
you
same patterns over and over again? It might be,
correct.
and
Yeah.
I'm 48 now, and but I
Mhm.
think what's useful even for me reading his charts is that you've had some life experience,
Yep.
and I think I've discussed this with you. One thing I learned with
Mhm.
astrology is that getting older is great because usually you learn from the past and you
Yes.
grow and
Yes.
you let go of things. And
And if
it's
you resist it, it's
constantly
gonna
being
be
in
worse
relationships
getting
with people.
older.
Yeah. And just being like, you know what? I've done this 15 times with the same results. And maybe that's not good. And then maybe you start because you like blame other people, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be blaming them.
Yep. You
Maybe
start,
I'm a part of
"Maybe
it.
I have a part to play." Yeah, y
Yeah, and that's the whole role of being in relationships with other people. I mean, some
sure.
things people you don't realize that you can have a hard relationship with someone else, but they actually help
Mhm.
you grow
Mhm.
because you're focusing on, why is this happening? And, maybe when you do coaching, I think to
Mhm.
do any sort of coaching, you probably have had to have some lived experiences,
I think it
and
helps.
and
Absolutely.
you're like, well, why is this happening? And it helps then you maybe help other people because you
Mhm.
thought it through.
You're absolutely right. The coaching, really, it is life experience, right? You get to draw
Yeah,
on that. The coaching training comes from, like, techniques on to, um how to ask the questions and
okay.
what sequences, that kind of thing.
I see,
But
yeah.
I don't think coaching I don't think you can be taught to coach. I think
Yeah,
you might be able to learn it. Um,
yeah,
but I think you also have to want to be of service to people, you know?
completely, yeah,
That's a big part of it too.
yeah.
Um, so Bethel, why don't we take a break? Um, and when we come back, we will dive into my birth chart.
Okay, lots of fun.
All right, folks, stay right there. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back from the break. As you've heard, we have been here with Bethel talking about birth charts, astrology, and how it is all intertwined, how we are all interconnected, and the absolute tool that it is to help you just kind of understand yourself and each other better. So now the fun part. We get to dive into my birth chart. And no, she didn't do it in the break. This was already done a while ago. Because I know someone's gonna be
There
like,
were
wow,
hours spent on this.
she did it that fast. Wow.
This is
So,
not my. I did not create this. This is a
got
computerized.
you.
Yeah.
Got you. No,
I
no,
mean,
but you did do like the so what I'm not sharing is the full explanation and interpretation
mm,
of what you did.
yeah.
But feel free, where do you want to start? What's the first part?
Well, I guess the overall energies of the chart. There's
Mhm.
different houses,
Okay.
and you see the ASC point. That's the
This one
ascendant,
right here.
which
Okay.
starts out the chart. So the first, and you go all the way up to the 12th.
Okay, so
Those
the chart
houses,
starts right down here by the ASC, and you're
exactly.
saying
Yeah.
it goes up this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes up uh, counterclockwise. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Oh, so it goes
And
up on this
the
side.
different
Okay.
houses kind of show different realms of your life experience.
Okay.
Ascendant is shows your just your direct kind of expression out into the world and kind of how
Okay.
people see you.
Okay.
You have a lot of planets in the in the 12th house,
So
which
this is the 12th house over here
yeah.
on
So
this
you
side?
see
Okay.
the circle with the dot in the middle. That's the sun.
Okay.
Next to
That's
it
this.
is
Yep.
Jupiter,
Okay.
Moon. Below that is some other point I don't really pay attention to. And then you have Venus, which is close to the ascendant.
Okay.
Um, so the 12th house is the is the house kind of at the end of the chart, which
Mhm.
kind of it's more it's if you think about it as two parts of your life, it's kind of the end part of life,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it lines with Neptune and Pisces, and you're also a sign of Pisces, so
I
this is
am.
kind of
Yeah.
like double energy for you. You have the house of Neptune and Pisces, and you have your sun in Pisces.
Mm.
And the sun is there's a reason why you look in magazines or online, and your sun
Mhm.
signs that's like a main focus, because
Mhm.
the sun is kind of like your ego and just your how you shine in the world.
Okay.
Um, but your sun is in the 12th house, which is the place of where things are sort of hidden from you.
Mhm.
And it's just the kind of universal unconscious,
Mm.
which
Okay.
is trying to explain it visually. You're kind of submerged into this kind of like depths of where you're just the unconscious part of the world where you're feeling like sort of
Mm.
spirituality,
Mhm.
uh, maybe uh, what inspires you creatively. So you could have some
Mhm.
artistic tendencies,
Okay.
um, and what's hidden. So it's kind of a hard place for the sun to be,
Mm.
because it's not expressed directly from
Sure.
when you're at a young age. So I'm kind of guessing that it maybe took you time to sort of form a solid identity. I'm not
Oh
sure.
yeah. Well, I was going to say that that makes sense because and again, as we've talked about it before, that the hidden part makes sense, right? It's always been a challenge for me wanting to fit in, right?
Hmm.
As opposed to, okay, I know some gifts that I've been given. I know, you know, whether it's leadership, whether it's hard to explain in words,
Yeah.
but never wanting them to be fully out because it will make me stand out. So,
Mhm.
keeping those hidden. I mean, up until now,
Yeah, which
we're
is,
talking years ago.
but no, it's
Yeah.
funny because I've done a number of charts with people with their sun in the 12th house. Everyone, I love them all. Um, and there is sort of that feeling like you don't want people to judge you if you're showing off, if you're
Absolutely.
showing yourself.
Yes.
And but I think with the sun in the 12th house, you kind of learn a lot about yourself
Mhm.
because you're aware of your growth and your own perceptions about things.
Yeah.
Maybe more so if the sun is in other houses.
Okay.
And you also have Jupiter very close to your sun, which is called Jupiter
And
conjunct sun.
that's Jupiter right here.
Yeah, it's right
Have the cursor.
kind of like below the sun there.
Okay. All right.
And so Jupiter is expansion.
Mm.
So Jupiter would expand your energy, which is a good thing there.
Mhm.
It would give you a lot of enthusiasm. And it's funny, enthusiasm about matters of the 12th house, which is like spirituality and
Yeah.
what people can't see.
Yeah.
That kind of like part of the world,
Yeah.
which is sort of like a very intuitive, kind of hidden part of the world. But
Sure. That
yeah,
also makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense very specifically on my coaching journey so far.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
much so. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You also have Moon in the 12th house. So you have your other light, your sun,
Mhm.
your main light, and then Moon, which is your
Mhm.
emotional unconscious,
Okay.
in the 12th house, which means, maybe it took you a while to kind of understand your emotions more. But you
Mm.
also have it, let's see, you have it tied into your Neptune. Neptune, I
Mhm.
see, is in the 8th house, which is a trine. And you have
So
it
the
connected to,
so the moon is here and you're saying it's connected
yeah. So the
where?
green
Mhm.
lines are, so there's things called aspects.
Okay.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself here.
Oh no, go ahead. Here, I'll go back to the full chart there. Go ahead.
But
You can, if you want to talk about the different
yeah,
connections.
I'm looking at those
Sure.
lines. The green lines and the purple lines are seen as easy aspects, and I wouldn't always say that they are, but
Mhm.
that means you easily express the energy between the other planets, which stand for different things.
Okay.
And then you might have some harder aspects, which
Mhm.
are, it's a little bit harder to bring those energies together
Okay.
with Moon and Pluto and maybe Saturn also.
Mhm.
But I think with your Moon in the 12th house, you're showing a sort of a spiritual dimension, another spiritual dimension of
Mm.
Neptune in the 8th house. But you also have some difficulties with Pluto in the 6th house. Not
Okay.
difficulty.
Yeah.
So I would say that you probably have very deep, intense emotions sometimes.
Never, ever in my
Okay.
life. No,
Could be
I'm kidding. Yeah, that. Yes,
um,
that's a very accurate description.
yeah, and then you also have a square with Saturn, which is down in the 3rd house.
Okay. Third house Saturn is, so
Down,
this is the
it's
eighth
it's
house.
actually one of your own planets down in the lower portion of the chart.
Is it right here?
Um,
Where I have the
it
cursor?
is,
Sorry.
so if you go down from the ascendant, it's
Oh,
the,
down here.
yeah,
Okay.
it's in sign of Cancer.
Gotcha.
Um, and Saturn in the 3rd house could show maybe some restrictions in your childhood with like
Yeah.
communication and just kind of how you feel about your environment.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I was recently on an unrelated podcast, but had a podcast appearance where I did speak about my upbringing and talked about, also, it's going to be upcoming in a book, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Working on that now. That was
Oh,
I just
okay.
dropped that out there.
Yeah.
Like I don't know where it
Is
what
it like a memoir or
not exactly. I
no,
don't
okay,
know how it's yeah, I'm not sure how it's gonna turn out yet.
okay.
But yeah, like the restriction in communication. So I grew up in a dysfunctional family. And I spoke about that, and I spoke about how my father was a functional alcoholic. So
Mm,
there were a lot of restrictive things that I did grow up with, you know,
okay.
for more than one reason. Again, and we're not categorizing anything as good or bad, just as what is.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. Well, again, folks, I've already gone through the birth chart with her, but it makes a lot of sense. Um, like having that description, having that there, like, yeah, this is a thing. This happened. It wasn't just I wasn't um making it up, or it wasn't crazy, or it's something that did happen, you know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that you could see that in your chart, yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
that, that you had, some restrictions within your childhood, and that Saturn isn't always I think people see it as bad. You know,
Mhm.
I have Saturn in almost the same spot in my birth. Um, um, yeah, because it stands for restriction, but it also stands for
Mm.
structure, for
Mm.
self-discipline, for delayed
Mhm.
gratification. If you don't have
Mhm.
Saturn in your chart, uh, you need it. You need it to provide some kind of structure, but
Sure.
it does show maybe some areas of your life where you might have more growth later. You know, you
Mhm.
have to experience some things earlier in your life to have
That
to
yeah,
have
which
growth later, and you have to work on those things. But when you work on
yes.
them,
Yep.
it
Well,
can
like
carry
you said,
really well.
that's using this as a tool, right? To
Mhm.
oh, sorry, I went to the wrong one, but that's using the whole birth chart as a tool. Um,
Yeah,
Again, none of this is set in stone, but it gives you a really good map, right? A really good understanding of what was when you were born, you know?
yeah.
Um,
And,
so let's
and it also still
oh yeah.
influences you throughout your life, but it's
Yeah, absolutely.
there's the good and bad. I mean, that's what I was saying about understanding other people,
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
you have to have some humility when you look at other people's charts or when you just deal with other people. Because if you see your own, most people don't have this fantastic birth chart. And actually, some people who do have lots of easy aspects,
Mhm.
it's good to have some things that you work on in your life. It's good to
Sure.
create some sort of complexity to your personality, and it's good to, it's more interesting.
Well,
And you
because
need,
if you don't, right, if you stay the same person, that means you're
yeah,
not really
you need,
evolving. You're not
yes, you need,
changing. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So let me go back to this upper half here. Um okay, yeah,
Yeah,
and you know
so
what? That was hard to see the 12th house here. It gets covered by the
yeah, and
connections.
you also have Venus in the 12th house. It's very close to the ascendant, which,
Mhm.
it's funny because Venus close to the ascendant is supposed to be a sign of beauty,
Well,
attractiveness.
I am
Like
beautiful, so I'll take
Beyonce,
that.
Angelina Jolie have, Venus the ascendant, but it's it's
They take after me.
first to show that Venus also stands for diplomacy, for just
Yeah.
wanting to people to get along,
Oh, well, that
some
makes a lot
sort
of
of
sense
beauty.
too. And my mother will always say this too. I was big on fairness. Well, even
Yeah,
now, right? When you
yeah,
start thinking about things like social justice and those kind of things,
hmm,
I'm big on fairness for sure, right?
yeah,
But even growing up, always wanted things to be equal, wanted things to be fair, and had a hard time when they weren't.
yeah. Which you could see Venus on your ascendant, and
Yeah.
other people could easily see that because what's on your ascendant is what people immediately see about you.
Mm.
And you can see, like, I saw a lot about your interest in social justice in your chart,
Oh
especially with
wow.
Mercury in your 11th house, which is the house of social groups and friendships,
So
and
that's
even
right
how,
here, right? Is that this one in the 11th house?
yes,
Okay.
and even how you might be attracted to sort of like more different or kind of not rebellious, but just
Hmm.
which goes, it's actually is a little bit, it's not quite diplomatic, but what you're saying, Venus in the ascendant, but you're
Sure.
attracted to more, different kind of eccentric, sort of rebellious
Mm.
ideas with Uranus,
Yeah.
with like social, with like social justice or whatever you
Sure.
might call those kind of ideas,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah.
Um,
That
yeah,
makes
but I
sense
did
too.
see that in your chart as well.
Okay.
Um, you have Mars in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public image,
Okay.
which is
10th house.
like
So
a lot of
that would be Mars right here, right? Yep.
the round circle with the
Yep. With the arrow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But people with Mars in their 10th houses usually, I mean, it's not always career because not everybody has this huge career. You could be like a homemaker, but
Hmm.
you put a lot of energy into Mars is your drive and how you go about getting what you want. So
Mm.
it looks like you have a lot of energy that goes into your career and public image.
It, I would say, and so what's interesting about that is, I would say that is a new part. It
Okay.
was not always. Well, I guess being in television, um, yeah, I was never in front of the camera. I was
Yeah.
always behind
Well,
the
it's not
camera.
always about being front and
Right,
center. It's more just
right,
about what kind of energy you're putting into things. So
right, right.
where your
But
energy is
and
going.
and I did put a lot of energy into the television career,
Yeah.
and I can definitely say that there is a ton of energy going into this entire coaching career now too. So
Yeah.
absolutely. And but the public part of it now, like the public image or what
Hmm.
people that is growing exponentially.
Yeah. I mean, if you have planets in your 10th house,
Hmm.
you have, I think the public is more aware of you than other people, usually.
Gotcha.
Um,
Well, that's a good thing.
and
That's a
you
good
have
thing for me then.
your Mars and your Moon connected with each other, an easy connection. So your
Mm,
emotions kind of flow easily with how you express yourself and your drive.
gotcha. Oh, that makes
So
sense.
it kind of
Yes.
goes into, sorry to interrupt, into your,
No, no.
like,
Go ahead.
there's a lot of, there's a lot of, where you can see that there's a lot of enthusiasm, which when I
Hmm.
interact with you, I feel that. Like you give off a very enthusiastic kind of energy. And you
Yeah.
can see that with your Sun Jupiter connection and your Mars Moon connection, I think.
Oh, that's cool. I
Yeah.
like that. So Bethel, let's actually with the chart here. Can you talk about the different connections? We'd started about it, but the different colors. So the connections of the yellow, the red, I think there's orange, purple,
Yeah.
green. What are those?
The main connections, so the reds
Hmm.
are squares.
Okay.
Squares are seen as a difficult
Okay.
connection.
Hmm.
It takes more time to kind of work with its energy. So you have a square I can see right away with the moon, with your emotions and Saturn.
Yes.
Those the restrictions that you experienced,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
or discipline.
Hmm.
And then there's the blues or oppositions. So,
Mm.
like for instance, you have Venus, which is on your
Hmm.
ascendant,
Hmm.
which is how you are kind of express yourself on the world, how the world kind of feels you, like your vibe.
Sure.
Opposite Uranus, which is on the descendant and the seventh
Which is
house
right here.
of partnerships, which is change, uh, eccentricity,
Hmm. Hmm.
and independence. So you maybe in your personal relationships or just in general might have some kind of you might be projecting some kind of energy with the kind of independence you want. Also, I don't.
Mm.
Let's talk
Yeah.
into further. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, that could I could see that. I can see that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the whole thing about it is not to like reach for what it's
Right.
showing.
No, no. Yeah,
Like,
you don't
okay,
have to agree with
everybody's
all of it,
different. I mean,
but
but
I
I do see that you have Uranus
yeah,
on the descendant,
yeah.
which means what you kind of look for in a partner, and maybe just sort of your shadow self
Mhm.
is sort of independence.
Mhm. No, that
So,
makes
which is interesting.
100% sense. It makes
Okay.
100% sense because I will come back out on camera here. So yeah, I will share that it's funny when my wife and I were dating, um so at the time she wasn't dating anyone, right? And we were dating like in our mid 30s, and she had felt like, cool, I'm at the point where I'm not gonna get married or I'm not gonna have a family. And she's very independent.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, right?
I could see
She
that. So you're attracted to very independent.
Yeah, she had her
Yeah.
own career, all this. She was, and so it was funny at the time that we started dating because it was like, well, wait a minute, cool. If it's um perfect, then where do I fit in?
Yeah.
But I mean, here we are going on 12 years later that I
Yeah. The
fit in. So
child and yeah.
exactly.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But
All right.
that I can see how that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And then
So you see, folks, by the way, just letting folks know, it's not exact, right? This is not something where, Bethel's reading the chart and it is something. If if it fits, cool, right? It's again, it's just an explanation. It doesn't mean that's what you are or that's what you're going to be, you know?
yeah, and even the readings can't be exact. I mean,
Right. Right.
it means so many different things. That's why it helps when I get feedback from people.
Hmm.
Like, some
Hmm.
people say, "Oh, that doesn't seem like it fits," and then you discuss it with them, and yeah.
Right.
I mean, the
Yeah.
whole thing
No.
with reading a chart is kind of weighing the different aspects.
Hmm.
There's some things, if you see a repeat of certain themes, like, okay, well, this fits. Other ones, you're just not sure. So,
Right. Right. So
and
I would say looking at my chart here, what are the let me go to the upper half here. The gray connections. What are those?
those are very minor aspects.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, those are
Those are
like
minor.
octiles, and they're very minor. The yellow ones are in conjunctions, which means
Mhm.
the planets don't really, which they're considered minor, but I don't know if I consider them minor all the time.
Mhm.
I don't. There are certain planets that don't see each other at all. So like a square is 90
Sure.
degrees apart. Oppositions are 180. Trines are 120, and then sextiles, which are the purple ones there, are 60.
Mhm.
The
Oh, okay.
sextiles are they flow easily, but they take a little bit of effort.
Sure.
And the trines, which are the greens, flow very
Mhm.
easily. So I
Okay.
see you have like a trine between Neptune and Mars, which means
Mhm.
that your Neptune is kind of like also the 12th house energy of sort of spirituality
Mhm.
and kind of artistic attunement. It flows really well with your drive and
Mm.
your how you kind of go after what you want. So you might have a sort of a spiritual dimension to how you go about
I
going after things.
I would agree with that 100%
Yeah.
because I'll tell you, like I totally once I got not once, the more I continue to step into the coaching world, it's a calling.
Yeah.
It is definitely a calling. I am
That's
meant
gonna
to
have
do
to
it.
be, yeah.
Yeah. And even some of the impact projects that I'm trying to do long term, right? Whether legacy projects, whatever you want to call them, I also I tap into the spiritual side of that. Like, does God want me to do that project, right? Or how does he
Mhm.
want me to influence that? How does he want to use me to do certain things? So,
Interesting, yeah.
yeah, I could
Yeah.
see that part as well, being able to tap into that. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's funny because I mentioned about my upbringing, very religious, and I don't know how religious I am anymore, but
Sure.
but it does provide a sort of structure, or even how you just kind of understand everything that you do. And it's funny how doing astrology and maybe coaching, and maybe just dealing with people makes you kind of think about your relationship with God and just how
Absolutely.
everybody around you. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to actually go back here. What is one of the things that stands out, if anything, um, about my chart? What is one of the things that stands out to you?
Well, the number one thing, which I think any astrologer would say, is 12th house.
12th house. Yeah,
Um,
because there's so many,
there's a
there's so
lot.
much there.
You have your
Yeah,
sun and moon,
in the 12th house.
Jupiter,
Yeah.
which is expansion, and Venus,
Yeah.
which I would say that it maybe a lot of those energies of those planets took more time as you got older to
To
develop.
develop. Yeah.
But you have your ascendant in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. You have your Mars on the midheaven at the top of your chart, which is what people readily see about you. So your energy, what people experience about you on both those points is Aries is bold. It's it's just courageous. There's a lot. It's a fire energy. So a lot of those things are hidden, are kind of offset by you just have a very easy energy of expression, of expressing yourself in a very direct way, in an Aries way. So
Yeah.
I found that
And
interesting. I think that Mars has a large is important in your chart. Just looking at the different houses and signs.
and I would say also I would say that's not the first time that I've heard that, you know. And I mean it makes sense even for those things to have developed, right, over time.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older and you get more comfortable with,
Hmm.
you get more comfortable in your own skin with who you
Yeah.
are and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. I would 100% agree with that. So, so Bethel, I want to bring this up here so that people can get in touch with you. Um, if they want, if they want their birth chart done, if they want, would it be called a reading? I mean, I call it a consultation. I don't know if it's a reading, but
Yeah, it's a reading.
it
Yeah.
is a reading. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a reading. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, folks, if you want to get in touch with Bethel, this is her email address, and you'll have to give specific information, right?
Mhm.
And she will talk about the investment that is. We won't talk about that here, but yes, you can get in touch with Bethel for um, your getting your birth chart read and going through it. And I think the most important thing that I want to add is that it's a tool. It really is a tool. It's not something that's set in stone. It's not something that is that if it hasn't happened yet, oh my gosh, it's never going to happen. It helps you understand maybe where you came from, where you're at, and you get to determine where you want to go. So,
Exactly. That's good.
yeah. Cool, Bethel. Well, I have appreciated you being on the Spotlight series. Um, I
Thanks
hope
for
you come back. Maybe
Yes.
we'll do like maybe we'll have one of my co-hosts for another series, and we'll do like a live show that's a birth chart reading there.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'll have to ask them if they'd be part of that.
Yeah.
Well, folks, you can catch us on Google. You can catch us on Amazon, on Spotify. You can also catch us on Traverse TV. That's the new network, and that's Live All Good TV there. Bethel, again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
folks, until next time, we're signing off for the Spotlight series.
Bye.